Skopje 83 brings players to a beautifully crafted, cel-shaded, alternate universe version of its namesake. Mixing a first-person shooter with roguelite loops and survival crafting is either genius or madness, so let's dive in and see what developer Dark One created. Hi, I'm Dove and I love indie video games, and today we're going to take a look at indie-developed Skopje 83. As you can see right off the bat, Skopje uses cel shading, and you're likely either excited by it or apprehensive about it. Regardless on what side of the line you stand, I can tell you that the frame rate stays consistent while you are out and about in Skopje. The detail in the world and objects players interact with is very well done. Graphically, it feels like you're playing inside an actual comic book. It's some kind of mashup really of HiFi Rush and Stalker. Without spoiling too much of the discovery, the plot has your character, the Pioneer, waking up to find one friendly voice on a radio in a city overrun by mindless creatures that are hell-bent on taking you down. Your character is trying to find a way out before the city is blown up at the end of a 7-day loop. Each time you die, you're thrown back to the start of a time loop where you remember your previous runs and can carry over a few items if you're lucky enough to store them on your bus. You'll have to figure out how to unlock your way out of the dome you're stuck in and eventually figure out the perfect route to get out. You can uncover tidbits of lore as you try to find your escape route from Skopje. At times, with the plot's time loop and the overall main objective, Skopje 83 feels a tiny bit like Deathloop in the best ways possible. The combat is satisfying and honest. Melee attacks require timing and dodging, and perhaps a few abilities to help that particular build. You'll definitely want to focus on getting an upgrade from the pipe you can craft initially if you want a good melee build. You also have a quick slice from your knife, and this is probably your best attack early on. It's quick and can melt enemies from stealth. Just aim for those green packs and save your ammo if you can. The gunplay is solid, as I said, and I was astonished to find early accounts complaining about it. First off, you have the option to fine-tune the sensitivity for your controls and the aiming, which should just be standard in my opinion. After that, the shooting controls are what gamers want. Honest, I never felt like shots hit but didn't register, and similar enemy types had consistent hit counts or health. There are no magic bullets homing on enemies, and since ammo can be scarce at times, your shots really matter, adding to the importance of each one you take. At the end of the day, just be mindful of how many enemies are attacking you and around. In the zombie apocalypse style game, it's not generally the one-offs that are the problem, it's when they start to gang up when you'll really be tested. And that very balance is tested constantly. Yes, it's smart to stay close to your base, but exploring yields you upgrades or perks and more powerful weapons. 23 weapons in total actually. Perks will carry over between runs, while only the blueprints for new weapons you acquire will carry over. So if you find the Vector SMG on one of your runs, after that you'll be able to craft it at your workbench in subsequent runs if you want it. That leads us to the survival crafting aspect of Skopje. To be honest, it mixes just the right amount of detail and simplicity and keeps most of the elements right in the area of interesting, but not annoying. Too many survival games either make you go to the ends of the earth to find one tiny ingredient or give you a groceries list worth of parts to combine to make one object. Not only is the crafting striking that right balance, but that carries over to the looting and storage as well. While you do have the square backpack storage setup, items are constrained within one square shape, so you don't have to play Tetris every time you want to fit something into your pack. It is a slight disappointment to see your enemy and their gear evaporate in front of you after you neutralize them, but it does save time and keep you focused on looting different areas rather than checking every fallen enemy along your path. And even when you're combing through apartments, they're broken down into small sections so you're not rifling into every single cupboard and drawer. For the survival aspects, gamers will obviously have to monitor their health, but in addition to that, you have thirst, hunger, and sleep meters that you'll have to monitor as well. Let any of those go and your character will suffer the consequences. You'll either slow down considerably or have a harder time aiming, so ignoring any of the monitors outside of health will just make the game harder and harder as you go. When it comes to the roguelite features, Skopje 83 feels, well, light in that area, and not necessarily in a bad way. There's always a delicate balance when it comes to roguelite and roguelike games. Generally speaking, games of this variety are notorious for making you just an unstoppable badass by picking the right upgrades. In most of those style of games, you can also just back your way into a really good build as upgrades are monumentally effective. But in this one, those random upgrades that you acquire after leveling up feel a lot more incremental than monumental. While at first I felt like it was a spot the game could really improve, when you get deeper into the game, you notice that the balancing would be way off if you got overpowering upgrades early on. Some of the best parts of the roguelike genre that Skopje implements are the randomness and locations of enemies and items. It also randomizes the area puzzles that you'll need to solve to clear objectives. On top of that, Skopje 83 uses a mobile bus as your essential hub and base for upgrades. So while you drive around the map trying to check off objectives, you're able to hop in the mobile base, drive around, take a nap if you want to, and upgrade your player whenever you need. Now that's not something you see every day from this style genre. And not only is it cool to have a kind of mobile meta progression system, but it's fun to drive around in the bus. The Dom, as the game calls it, handles pretty darn well for a gigantic vehicle navigating a post-apocalyptic hellscape. It's also a lot of damn fun to just run over enemies as much as possible. Your character upgrades every time or gets experience every time you take one of those guys down, so the game doesn't just allow, but it encourages vehicular manslaughter. You'll have to care for the Dom as well. You'll be able to craft vehicle maintenance kits, fuel batteries, or you can just stop at one of the many refueling stations in the game. So yes, it would be a lot of fun to have the overpowering upgrades at level up, but I feel the intentional design choice the devs made to limit the upgrades' impact as you go keeps the balance just right. The randomness of enemies, puzzles, and supplies along with a mobile upgrade base is a great way to mix some aspects of roguelites into the recipe while maintaining Skopje 83's own identity. The game's also a true challenge. As I've compared this to Deathloop a bit because I really enjoy that game, one aspect I didn't really like of Deathloop was once you figured out the order you needed to go, it made the game very simple. That's not the case here. Once you open up the map and know where all the objectives are, you'll have to plan out your attack in a 7-day time limit. With all the randomness of the puzzles and the enemies, it really keeps you adapting on the fly. You'll be able to stock up some supplies in your mobile base, but you'll still likely have to have a good strategy of how to take down the objectives, stock up your supplies, and get out of the dome before the clock runs out. The area puzzles you run into vary a lot. If you're lucky, you'll just have to hit a button, but others, you'll have to really dig deep to figure out what the game wants from you. And it always seems to throw you a curveball when time is of the essence. The game and the difficulty is analogous to the enemies here. Taking one puzzle or objective at a time is easy enough, but when you have to take on all of them with the clock constantly ticking, it is a challenge. Tech-wise, the game ran quite well. There were a few dips in frame rate when controlling the camera and driving the bus and the loading of a new zone, but for the most part the rendering was smooth as you drove around. There's plenty of settings to tweak for graphics, so if you want to get things just right, you'll be able to do that. Now, the one area I haven't talked about yet in this one is the audio. When it comes to the sound effects and ambient sounds, the game is right on par with the best. There were maybe a few background noises that could use a little fading here and there to be less jarring when they switch, but outside of that minor critique, the effects are well done. The reason I haven't discussed audio yet was because the music was few and far between. There is that ambient music once in a while, especially when you got a lot of enemies coming at you. And it's great for that setting of being in a post-apocalyptic type area with just one person to talk to over a radio. But it would just be nice to be able to maybe switch that radio to some music. I was just hoping to hear some old 80s tracks hitting the radio frequency. Sure, that'd drive the price of the game up a lot, but who wouldn't want to hear some Cyndi Lauper or my personal favorite Hall & Oates while you're blasting away monsters? I think Maneater would just work perfectly in this setting. Now, overall, this game is an absolute recommend. The art style works perfectly and makes you feel like you're in a living comic book. The combat is honest and intense, which translates to a meaningful survival system that doesn't bog down gamers with too much. And when Skopje 83 is at its best, it feels like a real living puzzle that can change every time you play. So if you're interested, check out Skopje 83 on Steam and the Epic Game Store. Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit the like button. And subscribing goes a long way towards bringing you more content like this. We also have a weekly news podcast called the Indie Radar, where we focus on indie news and upcoming titles. Thanks again for watching from all of us here at The Gamer Buff.